Welcome to Aon at the Top, where I have the honor of interviewing some of the most distinguished executives, C-suite, and board members about their journeys and paths to success. I'm your host, Nicole Ward, the Senior Vice President of Sales at Aon. In this series, we draw out meaningful insights and candid perspectives on navigating to the top. At Aon, we help you make better business decisions by turning risk into resilience. Today, we get to welcome Chief Legal Officer Derrick Alesevich. From advising billion-dollar unicorns to shaping the future of tech and education, Derrick turns bold ideas into lasting impact. Derrick Alesevich is an accomplished C-suite executive with 2 decades of experience building and scaling unicorn technology companies in Silicon Valley. Having most recently served as Chief Legal Officer, Chief Administrative Officer, and Corporate Secretary at Udacity, a pioneer in education technology, he helped lead the company to its acquisition by Accenture last year. Prior to Udacity, Derrick was the General Counsel and Corporate Secretary at Optimizely, a leading SaaS experimentation platform born out of Barack Obama's 2008 presidential campaign, where he guided the company through its sale to Insight Partners. Earlier, as Vice President of Legal at Quantcast, one of the earliest big data and machine learning companies, he played a key role in driving its global expansion. He began his in-house legal career as Associate General Counsel at 2Wire, a hardware provider to the world's largest telecom companies. Derrick is a rare Las Vegas native who discovered his calling in technology soon after moving to the Bay Area. He specializes in guiding companies through critical stages of maturing operations, scaling internationally, securing financing, and preparing for liquidity events. With a passion for innovation, entrepreneurship, and leadership, he's known for wearing many hats and the ability to help solve complex business challenges. Derrick has had the privilege of working closely with boards comprised of some of Silicon Valley's most accomplished and respected VCs, and excels at fostering collaboration and strategic alignment among C-suites, founders, and boards. He enjoys leveraging his cross-industry experience to advise startups and invest in later-stage private companies, helping fuel for the next wave of innovation. Derrick, it's such an amazing background, and you're such an amazing human. I'm so glad to have you here today. Thanks for being here.
Thrilled to be here, Nicole. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's go back a little bit about and think about your foundation sort of around your career and legal leadership and where all that came from. I mean, obviously, it's incredibly impressive what you've done with a career that spanned multiple high-growth unicorn tech companies. You know, what originally inspired you to pursue an in-house legal career, and how did that evolve into sort of the path to leadership that you've been on?
So, like most attorneys, you start off in a law firm. You put a few years in, getting some experience. I knew, I think, very early on that I wanted to be on the client side and not on the external advisory side. I loved technology. I wanted to build, and I wanted to wear some business hats. So it was very logical for me to go in-house rather than staying in that external advisory role. After about 2 weeks of being in-house, perfect. Like, it was exactly what I thought it was going to be, and I knew I was never going back. So everything I was anticipating about doing in-house, it really like played out as I expected. Once I was there, I saw the impact that a good legal leader could make. My first 2 bosses were extraordinary leaders, and they were at a very unique nexus in the company that I didn't really see other leaders in. The legal department works very closely and collaborates across every organization, and a lot of times you see problems or miscommunications between teams that a lot of other executives don't see. And so I didn't realize that while I was in a law firm, that a legal person could be such an outstanding leader and wear a lot of business hats. So that's where I really saw my North Star being, is like really filling out my skill set. I had a lot of leadership holes I needed to fill, and I had to develop an EQ. It took a lot to be able to build out the leadership tools to be able to, excel in the leadership and move up to the C-suite.
That is, it's such a great call out there, the business partnership
that's required of the legal department within a corporate environment, right? That you do span across, you sort of touch on all the other departments, right? And how critical that is. That's a great call out.
Yeah, absolutely. People underestimate how legal leadership can be strategic advisors to the entire business, not just on the G&A side of the house.
Absolutely. What were, if you were to think back, the two pivotal moments, could be one, could be three, but two we'll go with, pivotal moments or decisions that really shaped the course of your career?
Yeah. First big one is when you go in-house, you have to figure out whether you're a big company person or a small company person. A big company person is going to be a highly specialized attorney. You're going to be in a massive bureaucracy and you need to be really, really good at one thing. But you're not going to touch a lot of the business. You're just going to stay focused in that one practice area usually. And it's a tough way up, right? If you ultimately want to be in the C-suite and you're going to have to compete with hundreds or thousands of other attorneys to rise up through those ranks. Other option is small attorney, startup attorney. You have to wear every hat in the company.
All the hats,
right?
Yeah.
Your knowledge is very wide but shallow, right? You're not a specialist, but you can do a little bit of everything. Key difference is you have to wear a business hat, right? You have to understand your industry extremely well. You have to be able to advise on all business issues, even if they just touch legal a little bit, right? And so it's a totally different role than a big company attorney. So that was number one. It's like, I'm going to be a small company attorney because I want to be a business person and an attorney. Second pivotal moment was deciding early on whether I wanted to be an industry specialist or be more of an industry generalist. So because I love technology, I wanted to keep changing industries in every role to keep me, intellectually curious, to satisfy that thirst for innovation that I love. So I went from hardware to machine learning to SaaS software to ed tech. And that has been very fulfilling for me because every job has all new challenges for me to go figure out. And I think had I stayed in one single industry, I would have gotten to the C-suite faster, but I would have been less fulfilled. And I love that I have this like breadth of technological knowledge that I wouldn't have had I just stayed in one single industry.
Well, it takes a lot of courage to do that, I think, and bravery on your part to be able to say, I've been in this industry, I'm going to go explore this next one. There's a risk there. So brave and good on you for taking it, which kind of leads into my next question, which is really, you've held GC, CLO, CAO, and corporate secretary roles across very different organizations, right? What's the through line across those, right, experience that sort of shaped your leadership philosophy?
So I've been in Silicon Valley for a long time, and I see a lot of patterns between successful companies and unsuccessful companies I've worked at, companies that my close peers have worked at. And it's surprising that people don't focus on this as much as they should, but communication and transparency are critical to succeed in an early stage company. I'm sure it's important for later stage as well, but it's absolutely critical at the early stage. You have to, as a C-suite, communicate very clearly down through the organization, the strategy, the priorities, give people kind of that North Star where everyone needs to be heading. You need people rowing in the right direction. With that, you need to be very transparent. A lot of companies make the mistake of hiding the bad information from their employees, hiding the tough stuff because they don't want people to be discouraged and then go work somewhere else. Well, that's not the way to treat adults, right? You give adults all the information, the good and the bad. And what ends up happening if you are transparent is you have the entire company focused on solving the company's problems. The companies that decide to hide the information, you tend to just have the leadership focusing on solving the problems instead of having the entire company focusing. Or if you're bad at communicating down throughout the organization, strategic changes, right? You do it once, you say, here's our strategy, okay, everyone go. And then along the way, there's always pivots and changes. If you're not good at communicating all that down through their organization, you're going to have different teams and different departments rowing in different directions.
Absolutely.
Right? So communication and transparency are absolutely critical. For early stage startups, you have to have a culture of innovation and ideas. You have to have a culture where the entire organization filters up the best ideas. C-suites don't innovate. Your best ideas are coming from 25-year-olds, right? You have to have a culture that makes time for everyone to dabble in their curiosities, right? If you have an engineering department that spends 100% of their time on the roadmap, then they're not innovating, right? You have to create that culture. You have to carve out that time to innovate, to have those ideas, and you need a system to surface all of those ideas.
Wow. And in an environment that is conducive and lends itself to the fostering of that, right? And
Absolutely.
that's, wow. I think it is important. And I think at what I'm hearing you say is that the idea of that is great. And I don't think anyone would disagree. But how you actually cultivate that and how you do it is where the rubber meets the road, right? It's easier said than done.
Absolutely. It's one of the most difficult challenges, right? Especially as you're growing, you're expanding into other jurisdictions. Successful early stage companies grow extremely fast, and you tend to have a lot of leaders who have never led before, right? They're on a team. They're really good at what they do. You're growing. You need people. You say, okay, you're now manager of this department. And then they don't have the toolkit or the training to necessarily manage a team and to understand how to communicate well and foster that culture. And so it's incredibly challenging. It's a challenge that every company, has to really put on the top of their list, of their to-do list. Like communication, especially as you're growing, can't be an afterthought. It always has to be priority one. Important thing happening. How do we make sure everyone knows about it and is rowing in the right direction? A lot of companies default to we'll just have a company meeting and assume everyone will get the message and everyone's, that's never the way. Like you need to have a much broader plan to communicate those strategic changes down throughout the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Sage. And what advice would you give to someone who's currently, say, a general counsel that's trying to get to the C-suite? What advice might you have for them?
The C-suite is a different job. So if you want to get there, you got to act like you're in the C-suite.
Act
right?
as if.
Right, exactly. So you're no longer an advisor of the company. You're a decision maker. The C-suite, your CEO, the rest of the team doesn't want to hear what the lie is. They don't want to hear about possible options. They want an answer on what to do. They want your input. They want decisiveness. They want speed, right? You have to get in that mentality of I'm no longer an advisor. I'm a decision maker. Secondary to that, you have to be seen as a master collaborator, not just in the C-suite, not just amongst, the next layer down. The entire company has to view you as a problem solver. You need to be seen as someone that no matter what the issue is, no matter how junior the person is, they can come to you and you're going to help them out. You're going to figure a way to solve whatever challenge they're dealing with. So having that reputation, problem solver, master collaborator, decisive person, that's your fastest path up to the C-suite. You have to gain the trust of the entire organization, not just the people that you're reporting to and want to work with.
Right. And really living into that role and the responsibility. And like you say that and this is a theme that I've heard, or at least a pattern, which is, a lot of C-suite, you have to make decisions with very limited information.
Yes.
Oftentimes very quickly. And there is an art to that as well as a science, but it's having been there, having done it, there's a gut you get, a read, and it's sort of this confluence where you go, this is the right thing to do now. But there's a little magic to it, if you will. And it's, stepping into that role fully and allowing yourself to do that. And that takes, like you say, that's a jump for someone.
Yes, absolutely.
That's a jump.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so when as a chief legal officer or CAO, et cetera, when you think about who you've partnered with, across the table, what makes a CFO or a CHRO a really good business partner for you?
So while you're rising up through the ranks, everyone is so focused on their team, running their department, right? Being singularly focused. When you get to the C-suite, it's a different job. Your biggest priorities are the company's biggest problems, right? Your team's problems are secondary to the company's problems. So a lot of junior leaders that come to the C-suite don't understand that from the outset. So what makes a great partner is someone that comes in, stops trying to focus on their own team, and really is laser focused on the company's biggest challenges, because then you can collaborate and figure out how to solve the company's biggest problems. If everyone is jockeying for what works best for their own team and their own department, then you just don't have that bond. You don't have that trust, and so every C-suite member needs to kind of think of themselves as the C-suite is my new team. I need to be responsible for this group of individuals, and we have these shared problems to solve, not just the problems of my functional area. And what's imperative, you need a strong number two who can really run the department while you're off figuring out how to solve the company's biggest challenges. A lot of times, if you're going through a major transaction, any type of major event for the company, you might be absent for a little while, laser focused on that. You have to have that number two to run your team. So a lot of like new people that are new to the C-suite don't understand that. They still think they could manage the day-to-day of their team, that they can, micromanage every issue. And it's impossible. You can't be a really productive member of the C-suite unless you have a number two, running your day-to-day.
Yeah, I think it's a great call out. And something to be so aware of. I think that's terrific. And to your point, it's a we, not an I, right? That you are looking, it's a we, not just about you as an individual.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's a jump for sure. You helped lead the sale of Optimizely to Insight Partners, and most recently the sale of Udacity to Accenture. No small feats. What does legal leadership look like when you're going through an acquisition, and you're going through something like that?
An acquisition is the world's least fun roller coaster. It is an incredible distraction to the entire company. And so your primary job is to make sure the company is still running. The acquisition is the second priority. The first priority is run the company. And a lot of people lose focus of that and put priority as the acquisition. What ends up happening when you do that, you may start missing a quarter or two. And then you lose leverage in the negotiation for the transaction because you missed a quarter or two. Or heaven forbid, the transaction falls apart. You wind up with a company that's been neglected for 6, 9, 12 months. And so you always have to put the company first, running the day-to-day, acquisition second. Now, typically, the first major portion of the acquisition is primarily going to be a stress case for CFO, CLO, and CEO, right? So it doesn't really start becoming a transaction until after you get a term sheet and really start diving into something.
Right.
Then it becomes a major distraction for the entire company. Your employees start worrying about what are they going to have a job? What's that going to look like? And so you really need to protect the company, right? The diligence process is incredibly burdensome. If you are selling to a large global company, they have way more resources than you do to go through a diligence process. So a lot of your time is spent being the blocker and defender for the company. You jump in and tell the buyer, no, we're not going to provide that to you. It's going to take 2 weeks of work, and we have other stuff to do running the company. So you really have to have a strong backbone and a willingness to take a lot of arrows to be that person that just dives in and says no to a lot of things. And a huge aspect of the job as well is keeping everyone calm. And I mean everyone. So again, I mentioned the employees before. They're naturally concerned about what their future is going to look like, what's going to happen to the company after we close. especially if you're selling to private equity who's known for, buying and then cutting a lot of jobs and outsourcing things.
Yeah.
So you have to keep them calm, but also your founders are going to be very emotional through the process. This is their baby. You have to keep them, focused on the end state, because the process, again, horrible roller coaster ride. You have to always keep them focused on, this is going to work out. We're going to get there. Let's not get too uneven keel through the process. If you have a professional leader who is brought in as a CEO, there's a lot on the line for them. If the transaction doesn't close, they feel it's going to reflect badly on them. And so they have a lot of emotion through this process, a lot of stress. And so you're there to ease the burden on them, help keep them even keel, block and defend. That's the job of a legal leader through that whole process. It's not fun.
Wow. Yeah.
I attribute all my gray hair to the acquisitions I've done.
Yeah, you're not making it sound fun at all, Derrick.
No, but it's nice to have outcome for people that have put so much effort in.
Absolutely, definitely, and you've had a significant number of those. And the other thing you've sort of delineated is that early stage versus your work for more mature kind of scaling businesses. How has your approach to legal strategy evolved as you've gone from being startup, legal to, again, the more mature environment?
As you would expect to really succeed at the startup phase, like the really early phase, you have to be super scrappy. You have to say yes to everything. You have to be very nimble, fail fast and pivot and course correct. Once you start maturing as a company, everyone thinks like, okay, we're going to get to 100 million ARR. Let's start building the moat around our product at that point. Let's just focus on our big company competitors. I've found, and I had to learn the hard way, is you can't change your mindset. If you stop being scrappy, if you stop failing fast, if you stop being nimble, you now have scrappy startups behind you trying to come take your business, right?
Absolutely.
So you can't be focused just on your big public competitors. You got to look in the rearview mirror and be afraid of them. So you shouldn't, and I had to learn that the hard way. Like, you shouldn't think you have to all of a sudden become more afraid of risk and failure and become defensive. You still have to be scrappy and fast, and it's okay to fail as long as you do it fast. Failing fast is great.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to keep that mindset and not get caught up in that big company thinking and big company mentality where things slow down to a glacial pace.
Yeah. No, I get the huge piece that is. And I would also ask, when I think about the role of CLO or CFO, there's a balance between risk mitigation and really thinking vision and growth. And both of those roles, in my mind, sort of balance that line. How have you balanced that in your career?
Yeah, I learned the hard way, like a lot of people, that I first came in as from a law firm, and every little thing scared me, and I just wanted to say no to everything because I thought that was risk mitigation. At the early stage, you have to say yes. If you're going to go out and do a transaction with one of the big global powerhouses, they're going to say, here are the terms, take it or leave it. And so mitigating risk doesn't mean saying no to that. Mitigating risk means take that on and figure out how to make sure that we don't have a problem. I'll give you an example. One of those contracts is going to have uncapped liability on something like cyber. Mm-hmm. That is critical. That could end your business if you have a massive cyber incident. So when you say yes and take on that type of liability, you have to mitigate that risk as best possible. So you work very closely with your engineering team to make sure everything gets on the roadmap that needs to be on the roadmap from a security perspective. you have to make sure that once it's on the roadmap, it doesn't get deprioritized because, you want to throw on some customer features and functionalities. So you constantly have to fight your way through to make sure all those security measures get implemented. And then you have to make sure that you're doing appropriate penetration testing and everything, so that while you have this huge liability in a commercial arrangement, you're very secure from a cyber perspective, and you can be more certain that something big isn't going to happen. Another example, which I've had to deal with, is if you're in a regulated industry, oftentimes there's legislation coming at some date in the future. You don't know what it's going to be, but you have to roll out product. Like, you just can't wait until that legislation is fully baked and then decide what to do. So sometimes you have to launch a product 6 months before legislation is going to hit. You can't say wait. It's not possible. What you do is you get in there with your product team and your engineering team, and you try to build the product flexible enough that once the legislation comes out and you do have some idea of what you need to do, you can tweak the product to accommodate for that regulation, and you won't have to start from scratch again, right? And so risk mitigation isn't saying no. It's we have to say yes. We have to do this. How do I deal with it to make sure that we're not going to have an issue down the road?
Right. That's a great example. Super helpful. And I wonder, all that, that you've been in some very high stakes environments, obviously, in very stressful moments, in very fast moving situations. How do you stay calm under pressure? How does that land for you?
Well, it's easier now. It wasn't easier when I was younger.
Right.
I think what happens is you go through so many massive fires, and you see that there's always a solution. There's always a way to get through it. And so now I have that mentality of, okay, it's a big fire. It's a scary thing, but let's focus on the solution to it. Let's stop worrying about all the potential, bad outcomes. Again, easier now that I've been through it. I found when I do, and this worked for me very well midway through my career. Once I'm faced with something big and scary, and I hit a roadblock, and I might be a little stressed out, I have a little trick for myself: is I go out and do very hard exercise. It's like magic. You come back, you have clarity, you're cool and relaxed. Oftentimes, you come back with the answer because through that vigorous exercise. So that worked for me. That was my hack. Everyone else has to figure out their own, but that's what worked for me. Was really figuring out how to put that stress aside and do it. Another thing, kind of in line with that, how do you deal with stress? Is how do you deal with anger? In your legal career in-house, you and your team are going to get thrown under the bus all the time, right? Whenever someone can't explain why they weren't able to do their job, they will just blame legal, and it's like knee-jerk reaction. I used to take it very personally, of course, and I'd get very angry about it. Anger is your worst enemy. You're there to solve problems. You're there to keep everyone else calm, and so you also have to have a mechanism for reducing anger. So, like I had my little mechanism for reducing kind of the stress, or hitting a roadblock when I was thinking through a problem. I had to come up with a solution when I'd get angry at this like unjust blame. Yeah,
I love it.
And so again, I'm not saying this is going to work for everyone, but I literally have a 5-minute timer that I'm allowed to be angry. So I'll set my timer. Like, you can be angry for 5 minutes, and then you got to grow up, put it aside, and solve the problem.
Wow.
Right. And so you just need to come up with little tricks, because you are going to be faced with insane stress, and you're going to get angry on occasion when you're unjustly blamed for things.
I get that. I think it's wonderful that you've found those levers that you can pull that lead to the best result for you. And I think your encouragement for others to do the same is a really good one. I think we all need to do that, right?
A lot of trial and error, by the way. Right. This is not perfected overnight.
No, but the working out, thumbs up. I love it. Talk to me about your overall sort of decision-making framework, your guiding principles, right? Like how do you navigate when things are really complex? Are there is there a criteria that you go back to that you apply in those situations?
I do have a kind of a formula that I use to kind of intake an issue. And this would be more for like more purely legal issues that are just squarely within my wheelhouse, not one that I have to collaborate with the entire organization. If it's more of a purely legal issue, when it comes in, I have to determine what the actual severity of the issue is. Usually when you have someone bringing you an issue, they're either way overstating it or way understating it, right? And so you have to figure out, okay, how severe is this? Is it small, medium, large reputational harm? Can it be like quantified with a dollar amount? Does it bet the company, heaven forbid? You have to figure out what the severity is. Once you have that, you have to move on to how much time do I actually have to figure this out? Just like the severity, usually the person bringing you an issue is overstating how quickly they need a decision. So you have to figure out how much time do we actually have to solve this? Once you have those two components, you move on to how much information do I need before I'm comfortable making the call. Most decision making, you can get through very quickly. You don't need to be 100% certain. You've been through it enough that like, okay, I have enough. Let's go this direction. If it's bet the company, you're turning over every possible stone, and you are not making a decision until you're 100% certain, right? And then once you have severity, time, and how much info, you go out and you do your research. What I do is I never rely on information that is second or third hand, right? So a lot of times, especially when you're in the C-suite or GC, you're going to get information from other leaders who got information from layers down within their org,
and so on and
so on. And everyone knows the game of telephone. It's no different
Right.
in a corporation. And so I make sure to go out and speak to everyone that has firsthand knowledge of whatever that issue is, right? You have to get it from their mouth and ask the questions that you want to ask, and not just rely on that game of telephone. That's critically important. If it's a super novel issue, go out and talk to your peer group. There's in-house legal communities where we all chat every day on novel issues, and it's great to have that kind of brain hive. Talk to your external advisors. Your law firm's great, but yeah, get as much information as possible. Okay, let's say the information doesn't lead to a clear decision, and this happens a lot of times. 50-50. It can go either way. There's no one else you can talk to on the planet that would have more information for you. You've exhausted all your resources. It's still 50-50. One thing that is surprisingly effective is to simplify the issue and bring it down to, will I be proud of this decision? Will our employees be proud of this decision? Will our customers appreciate the decision we've made? Does the decision align with our values? There have been a lot of 50-50 challenges that have been solved just by simplifying it and thinking through those things,
Those
right?
pieces,
It sounds kind of strange, but that really helps with the decision making on a 50-50 issue.
Yeah, tons of good advice and wisdom there. One thing I want to go back and pull on that you said was that brain hive, and that having a group of other legal connections or a network of people that you can go to bounce things off of. Did you cultivate that with intention? Did you sort of just go, well, I've been to enough events and I know these CLOs, let me call them up. Like, how did you curate those external, peers that you could go to rely on for insight and guidance?
Initially, much earlier in my career, it was purely like your own network. You work with enough attorneys at law firms, and you become friends with a lot of people, and you every company you work at, you all of a sudden know hundreds and if not thousands of people everywhere throughout Silicon Valley. So you kind of like build that network. What's been a great recent innovation is formal associations of early stage tech lawyers, and that's really short circuited that process. So if you're a junior attorney, you could just immediately join this organization, and you were all of a sudden networked in with all of Silicon Valley lawyers, and you have that kind of brain hive. You can go on the network and post a question, and you'll get 50 responses in like within an hour probably. But going back, we didn't have that, and it was really about making sure you're carving out time to build those professional relationships. It's kind of like part of the job is making sure you're going to things maybe you don't want to, going to MCLE events that sound boring, but it's great to go there and make friends and make peers. You have to make it. But now it's great to have the formal organizations.
Sure. Well, and it's worth, the effort, because it is outside of the day job, right? When you're like, oh, do I have to go to the thing?
Right.
And if there's content that's meaningful or someone speaking as a thought leader, well, then you're going to get juice from that, right?
Absolutely.
But, in terms of just going to say, I need to know more attorneys, of my other folks of my creed, sometimes that can always be motivating. But to your point, we never know where our career is going to take us someday, right? And for those folks that are listening that are aspiring to be knowing that having that group to go to, it can accelerate them to the C-suite because they've gone to a trusted advisory group that's external, bounced ideas off, a challenge that they may be dealing with, and been able to bring that back to the current situation, and that can be hugely helpful, right? So
Absolutely.
that network you're describing, I think, is a wonderful investment for someone to make who's on the rise or really committed to accelerating their career.
Absolutely. And kind of on that note, Silicon Valley is incredibly insular. After a while, someone at every company.
Totally.
And one thing I tell junior attorneys is never burn a bridge.
Yeah.
Your reputation from your first job is going to follow you for the next 30 years.
100.
Right? You are in a very tiny community of people. And
Yes.
so be very careful with your reputation.
Yeah.
Make friends. It's very helpful.
Great guidance. So I'd love to ask one more question just on, again, getting inside your head a little bit for those listening who have yet to deal with this or who are dealing with this, which is how do you prepare for low probability but really high impact events? A black swan that comes, a breach, whatever it is, fill in the blank, a COVID, if I'm allowed to say that. How do you prepare for that? Is there anything you do? Is there, thinking around that you have?
As a smaller company without resources, it's incredibly difficult to prepare for the unknown. But what you can do is prepare for things that have happened before and are likely to happen again. You mentioned COVID. The entire tech community and the whole world in general wasn't ready to go fully remote, right?
We were not.
Now, we've been through it before. Every company on the planet should be able to go fully remote in 24 hours. You should be able to go remote when a major office goes down and be able to still function with that office out of commission, right? You learn from that. If you're a California company, there's going to be an earthquake again.
Inevitably.
If you're not doing,
knock on wood,
once a year, once every couple of years, disaster response training, then you're failing. That's your job. You need to prepare for that. An area where almost the entire tech community failed from learning was the run on SVB when SVB went under. 2008 financial crisis. We should have learned not to concentrate with banking relationships, right? Lehman goes down, Bear goes down. Too big to fail can't be your backup, right? Fast forward, everyone's doing business with a very reputable and conservative bank in Silicon Valley. Bank concentration, SVB goes under. Literally half the valley almost went out of business.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There was a very tense weekend. I didn't sleep for
unbelievable that entire weekend
for a 40-hour period.
Oh my gosh.
We didn't learn. We didn't learn from 2008. It's not that long ago. We're not talking about the Great Depression here.
Right.
So you have to be prepared for things that happened in the past and are going to come up again. Another example would be a cyber incident. Every day, companies are having massive cyber incidents. It should not be a surprise to you, right? And so your company, again, should be doing disaster training that encompasses like a cyber component. What if all of your systems go down? What if half of your you just have to do this training so that people are ready to handle these disasters. And it's not going overboard. Like a training can be a half a day. It's not a huge burden on your company to be prepared for things that could easily happen. We're not preparing for an alien invasion. We're preparing for things that are happening every day.
Totally, that we know of anyway.
Right.
Absolutely. No, and thank you for answering that. Super useful. And, kind of popping out a little bit when we think about like vision and innovation, I'd love to know from your perspective how the legal industry's changed since you started, and where do you see it going?
It was super interesting that, I started my career as kind of like the early generation of where everyone did things on computers, right? I remember that, generation or two prior when I got to a law firm, you still had the old guard, going to the law library to look through books to research and dictating, memos and all that. And, I was of the generation of like, we do everything online. We write our own papers. Everything's like very fast and efficient. So that I saw that as this like massive seismic shift. But what we're about to go through next with AI is going to make that pale in comparison, right? Mm-hmm. So we're already seeing the roles of junior attorneys being eroded. Junior attorneys, contract managers, paralegals, their jobs are becoming less and less, I don't want to say important, but the work that they need to do and that AI can't do is shrinking, right? So we know that trend is probably going to continue. For senior attorneys, AI has been a great benefit. So it makes us far more efficient. We're able to draft things much quicker, review things much quicker, do non-critical research very quickly. A matter of seconds, we can write some prompts and have everything we need to get up to speed on an issue. And so AI hasn't been a disruption to the senior folks yet, but we know that AI is going to get better and better. It's going to start hopefully having judgment. And so it's interesting. I think if you're in law school today, you're going to have an entirely different career than someone that graduated just 5 years ago and is already kind of in that mid-range of their career. They've passed that kind of junior early stage that is now starting to get eroded. So it's going to be very interesting. No one knows for sure where we're going. We could just make assumptions, but certainly the legal landscape is going to be dramatically impacted by AI.
Yeah, it will be impactful across the board.
Right.
But I think you articulated that really well. I'd be curious, and sort of my next question was going to be around, well, what recent trend in technology are you really excited or concerned about? I mean, the obvious question, of course, the obvious answer to that would be somewhat related to AI, but I don't know if you have any additional thoughts, around what a trend is that you're really excited about or concerned about.
Yeah, you're right. Right.
Yeah.
It's going to be
Yeah.
And thinking broadly outside of just the legal sphere, it's going to help us innovate so much faster. So there's going to be unbelievable outcomes from AI as it gets better and better and better. Huge downside, right? Obviously, we know there's going to be massive job erosion, right? Terrible for society, terrible for the economy. But AI is already having negative effects on companies now who are over-reliant on it. Let me give you an example. So there are a number of AI enterprise search tools that essentially put all of your company's information in one spot, and AI is able to search all your databases for an answer. And an employee can just query something, and the AI is going to search through Gmail and Slack and your HRIS system and finance, and it's going to search everything and give that person an answer. Well, companies save everything now, right? The AI doesn't have judgment. And if you're familiar with the term garbage in, garbage out with AI, there's a lot of bad information being generated by these AI search tools, and employees are acting on that information. And so as a legal leader, I'd be very worried about what time bombs exist.
Yeah.
because people are no longer going and seeking information from the people that have the information.
Right.
They're getting it from this query and acting upon it. So that's terrifying to me.
Yeah. Well, and I think it notes, there's something else in there too around, and just my observation is what goes in, what AI is and what we're getting into there, it's like you say, garbage in, garbage out. It's also who's using it, right? So if there are certain strata of our culture that are using it, and that's socioeconomic to some degree, what kind of imprint is made on AI, right? And that also sort of predicates some of the results and some of the output, right?
Absolutely.
So I think it's all those things. Like you say, it's garbage in, it's, accuracy, it's, who and all the things. So no, very interesting. And if you, kind of going into, a few questions just for you personally, I'd love to know if you were going to go back and give yourself some advice, what would it be? Before you entered sort of tech and when you were just early on in your career, what would you tell yourself if you could?
None of them late in my legal career. What I would have done, even before jumping in house, I probably would have learned to code. Get a CS degree in college, right?
Interesting, yeah.
Gone out, learn to write software, and maybe even given it a shot. Starting my own company as a 22-year-old with some like-minded friends, right? Go out and give it a shot. Even if you fail, you're going to learn so much about how businesses operate, how innovation works, and then go to law school and then go in-house from there, right? I would have started with all this knowledge that it took me a very long time to accumulate. Now, I would have been a much more effective legal leader early on had I had that technological background.
Interesting. That's a good call out. A great awareness to have. And what does success mean to you? And are you successful?
I don't know. Success in Silicon Valley is interesting, right? You can be entirely fulfilled with your life, and then you see crazy exits happening everywhere, and then you're like, wow, well, maybe I'm not a success because I'm not WhatsApp and didn't sell my company for $15 million. So it's very difficult. If you really need to step back and figure out without looking at everyone else and what everyone else is doing, am I fulfilled? And so success for me is, have I had a very interesting career? Have I learned a lot along the way? Have I built relationships? As a leader, have I been good to people and helped give them the careers they wanted? Did I help people on my team get to where they wanted to go and achieve their goals and dreams? For, again, as a C-suite person, have I done that or helped do that for the broader employee base? Have I helped to get them good outcomes and given them the careers that they wanted, or help to give them the careers they wanted? That's I think what I'll look back on most to gauge whether or not I feel like I've been successful. Is have I had an impact on all the people I've worked with? Have I helped build cool stuff for customers? Mm-hmm. Have I built something that is gonna live on? That I think that's ultimately how I need to think about whether I'm successful or not.
It's a great answer. So impact is what I heard. Is
impact
that, and
satisfying my intellectual curiosities,
fulfillment. You said too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's great. Is there a legal misconception that you wish every startup CEO understood about sort of the legal world?
I'm going to do a public service announcement for all,
all CEOs out there,
all
listening.
legal leaders.
Yeah.
Dear CEO, just because you add an attorney on an email does not mean that email is privileged.
That's great.
Speak to your legal team, get to understand the nuance, and follow their guidance.
That's great. I love it. Service announcement. I love it. Yeah. And is there a misconception about lawyers that you wish every founder understood?
First-time founders have a hard time understanding the value of legal counsel, especially early on. So what happens, you have a company, a hot startup, they start scaling rapidly, and then they have this commercial burden that they need to alleviate, and they think, okay, let's hire an attorney at this point who can come in and just negotiate contracts. And that's the extent of what they think a lawyer is gonna do for them, right? In reality, you should hire a senior legal leader much earlier on in the process. Not only are they strong operators and strategists, but they'll help very early on build this like strong foundation, which you can grow upon and hyperscale on, right? What ends up happening a lot of times is founders will hire that senior leader far too late. And a lot of that person's job is then to go back and clean up all these messes. And you see all these areas where the company isn't growing quickly enough because it doesn't have that like really solid foundation, right? And then you end up spending way too many resources correcting those problems. So I
think a CFO would respond very much the same way, by the way.
Yeah, 100%. And so hopefully a founder, after their first go around and at their second company, they realize, okay, I need
the
to bring
value.
But that would be my top advice is hire a senior person as quickly as possible to help you as a strategist, as an operator, not just the legal person doing contracts.
Totally. Yeah. As a real business partner, right?
Absolutely.
To help vision out the business, like you say, strategically.
Absolutely.
You mentioned, you've got something really interesting on the horizon, which is all under wraps, but I know we'll all be excited to kind of hear and see what you reinvent for yourself next, especially considering your track record. So if people wanted, though, to, in the interim, follow you, find you, is there a place that they would go for that? Or is it LinkedIn? And, what's...
I love chatting with people. I love bouncing around ideas. I love advising small startups. Anyone can reach out to me and have a conversation about tech. And LinkedIn is absolutely the best way to do that. I'm very responsive and do not hesitate to reach out. I'm willing to talk to everyone out there who's not trying to sell me something.
I love it. Very good. Derrick, I'm just so grateful for your time. This is super insightful and really, really great to get your perspective on everything. I just appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. It's been really fun. Thank you so much.